Well, today we're welcoming a visitor from the East, and really not like from New York or Washington, D.C., but even further east. And so we are going to welcome someone whom you'll kind of recognize when you see him. Good morning. We welcome, did you guys know who this is? Santa, that's right. And I'm going to ask some questions of Santa so that you might gain a little knowledge about him. And the first question in the church is probably most important to us is, Santa, are you a Christian?
Absolutely.
And where were you born?
I was born in Patara, which is in modern-day Turkey.
Okay, and that makes you what type of nationality?
That was part of the Greek Empire.
Okay, so he was a Greek. Now, usually we see Santa wearing the furry cap with a ball on the end, but you're wearing a different hat today. What does that mean?
Well, this hat is a bishop's mitre. It is the official hat worn by a Catholic, and this is Eastern Orthodox Catholic bishop. This is the hat that he would wear.
Okay. Now, we know that you're supposed to be the patron saint of children. What do you do, or how did that happen?
Well, it goes back to the fact that I was the only son of very wealthy parents. Unfortunately, they died very young after I was born from an epidemic. And so I was actually raised by my uncle, who was the Bishop of Patara, and his name was also Nicholas. And so he raised me up in the faith. And very early on, he had me learn how to become the reader of the scriptures in the church. And he made sure that I became a priest. And eventually, I became one of the youngest bishops in the area. And as I would travel from town to town and go and visit people, because you have to get to know people in order to know what they need, I saw a lot of poor people, especially children. And children I felt really bad for because, one, I had lost my parents at a young age, so I could sense their loss and the fact that they're poor and they really don't have a lot of control over their lives. You know, they depend on parents and other people to be kind to them. And so my heart went out to them, and I believe what Jesus had said in the Bible of, give all, sell all that you have and give it to the poor. So I used the wealth that I had inherited from my parents, and I used it to give money to children and families as I found that they had need for food or for dowries or for whatever need they had. And so that's what I did. I went out and I was a saint. I didn't become a saint myself at the time, but I just really had a heart for children.
Did you have such a heart for children because you have children of your own?
No. As a priest, I took a vow of celibacy, so I was not married and I never had any children. But children have always had a special place in my heart because, like Jesus said, suffer the little children to come to me, for such is the kingdom of God. And so that's why I love children.
Now, because you wear boots and you probably had long socks, is that how they started hanging socks by the fireplace?
Well, no. The people at that time, they lived in houses, but they didn't have heating and air conditioning, and they didn't have, they'd have fireplace to keep the house warm. And so since a lot of them had to wear the same clothes day in and day out, if they washed their clothes, they'd have to hang them up close by the fire, so in order to be able to dry them overnight. And so a lot of times they would hang their stockings to dry along the top of the fireplace. And as I would ride my horse from town to town, sorry, time travel is tough.
It's that Mustang.
Yes, it's that Mustang. Mustang, my horse. So I was able to toss, come on down. I think this is over. Have a seat. Have a seat down here next to these lovely ladies so you can see them. Great. So, yes, I'm your friend. So as I rode my horse, the Mustang, around town, I could see in windows, and so I would throw gold coins, which I brought some today. And I would throw gold coins into the houses and through the windows. And sometimes they would land inside the stockings. And sometimes I'd carry oranges with me, which were very rare, very expensive, because a lot of them, the people who were poor, had very poor diets, and they would get a disease called scurvy for not getting enough vitamins. So I would leave oranges for them as a means of helping them with their health.
Now, would you leave lumps of coal for bad children?
Well, that tradition makes me feel sad, because I really don't believe in bad children, because we're all sinners. We all need God's grace. And so therefore, we don't deserve the gift of Jesus that God gave to us. So I just make sure that and coal, what is coal? It's fuel. It's fuel. What?
It's a type of rock or
It's a black rock, but it burns, all right? You can burn it and it makes heat. Well, if you're poor and you don't have enough money to be able to buy coal, getting a lump of coal or lots of lumps of coal is a good thing. It's a blessing. And so, and if you were poor, you couldn't heat your whole house all night long. So you would take the coal that you were burning and you put it in a pan and you would put it under your bed, and then it would warm, the heat would go up through your bed and keep you warm at night. So coal was a blessing, because when you're poor, heat is a nice thing to have when it's cold.
Now, your name's Santa Claus. How did that come about?
Well, actually, Santa Claus is, when you go to other countries, the words change a little bit. And so in the Netherlands, or in Germany, and in Austria, it's known as Sinterklaas. And Sinterklaas kind of sounds like Santa Claus, but it's actually their way of saying St. Nicholas.
Now then, I know your name's St. Nicholas, but where did Kris Kringle come from?
Well, during the Reformation, there was a separation in the Catholic Church. And so the Protestants, really not wanting to follow the Catholic tradition of worshiping saints, they decided it was better to worship the Christ child as the actual gift giver. And so they changed the name to Kris Kindle, which sounds kind of like Kris Kringle. When Germans came to the United States and they heard, and English people heard them say it, it sounded like Kris Kringle, but that was never my name.
Okay. Now, in the church, you helping the poor and the children was just wonderful, but did you do anything else in the church?
Well, as a bishop, in the year 325, there was a meeting that was called of all the bishops around the area and in the Greek Empire, because our Emperor Constantine, had become a Christian. And one of the problems that you had was, in various areas around there, people were teaching a little bit different things. The apostles had been teaching, and now this was about 250 years later, the word kind of got a little messed up. And there was a group of people called the Arians, and Arianism, and they were claiming that Jesus wasn't really the Son of God, that he was just another created man who had been kind of sainted, as it were, and therefore he couldn't give sacrifice. His death and resurrection didn't mean anything. And that's the whole center of our faith. So we had to combat that. And Emperor Constantine wanted to make certain that we were all believing the same thing. And when you have a statement of beliefs, it's called a creed. So after much discussion and research of the Bible, we came up with what we now know as the Nicene Creed from 325. And I was one of the members, and I spoke before the council.
Very nice. I'm still trying to put together where did the poem The Night Before Christmas come from then, or how does this fit in?
Well, The Night Before Christmas was written in 1822 by a gentleman by the name Clark Moore. And it's also known as A Visit from St. Nicholas. And it's a wonderful poem, but I never had to slay a reindeer.
Okay, and now, so how would you define the difference between the modern day vision of Santa Claus and what you actually did?
Well, unfortunately, Santa Claus is more of a commercial, secular icon. And it's been used, you know, throughout the movies and in advertising, basically to sell more Christmas presents. And that's fine in and of itself, but that Christ, that Santa Claus doesn't point to the babe in Bethlehem as the real gift from God. All I did was point, you know, trying to live a Christ-like life to the little children and to my parishioners in the area. And so St. Nicholas always pointed to the babe of Bethlehem.
Very good, very good. Well, do we want to thank St. Nick for coming today? Let's
Would you want to come up here? Come up here.
stand up and go gather around.
Pictures here with Mr. Henry.
Let's go start this thing.
Come on up here. Oh, there we go. Anybody's got an iPhone? Come on, sit over here.
Get moms and dads up here real quick.
Turn around. Turn around. Look that way. Stand next to me. Come on. Stand next to me. It's okay. I will fight. Here we go. Everybody. All right.
Cameras, pumpkin. Aren't you guys cute?
We all there.
Make a smile. Christmas is coming.
All right.
Can we say thank you?
Hold on a second here. I'll get something for you.
Not till after church.
Okay. Remind your mom and dad that they tell you don't open those.
Very
Here. See, the first thing you did was give half of it away. Good job.
good job, Joe.
Here you go. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming.